Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our fireside chat. I'm Kevin Gritch with Pax8, and I'm thrilled to be joined by two leaders that are really bringing together the cybersecurity and channel innovation in the MSP community today. The sessions we'll be covering are going to be around the evolution of MSPs, identity security, as well as how partnerships like Pax8 and LastPass can really drive the future of MSPs. Please welcome Karim Toubbar, who's the CEO of LastPass, and Ryan Walsh, our Chief Channel Officer from Pax8. So why don't we kick things off, a little icebreaker. Ryan, Karim, if I were to take your phone and open up whatever streaming music app you have going at the moment, what would I find you've been really jamming out to this year, whether it's a band, a particular song, or an album?
Do you want me to start?
Sure, yeah, please.
Okay, it's ironic the way you describe it, because I think what you would find, I used to jam and rock out in the morning, but then I read something that I'm creating noise in my brain. So what you would find on my jam list is classical music in Irish flute songs. So
there you go.
There you go. So that's awesome. Providing clarity in my workout and not overcomplicating my brain. So that's what I have to offer.
All right, that's great. That's great.
What about you?
That's a good one. That's a hard act to follow. So I'm going to go on the opposite end of the spectrum because I'm taking my son through a journey of some old school hip hop and R&B. So right now I built a bunch of playlists that have gone back to things like the 70s and 80s. So Earth, Wind and Fire and things like East Coast rap like Run DMC, Houdini and others.
Oh.
So it's
you're like my people right now.
I know, very, very opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of what we're doing. So those have started to pop up as I'm building the playlist into, workout routines and things like that, which is always fun to go to the past.
You need to add, or if it's not already on there, Hip Hop Array.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And House of Pain.
Gotta love House of Pain.
You'll always find some Grateful Dead on mine, but lately I can't get enough of Willie Nelson. Been jamming out to Willie Nelson.
You mentioned that the other
night. For like
a
year now, and
kind of like
his
that.
Stuff from the mid '70s is
bringing
great.
it back.
And I'm also late to the game on Nipsey Hussle. I've been jamming out to a lot of Nipsey Hussle too. Pretty different though.
It's very different.
Love it.
All right, so let's get our first question on the board. If we zoom out and take a big picture of what's going on, what does identity security really mean in the landscape today, and why is it more relevant today than it ever has been?
Yeah, I would start by saying, if I step back and I think about the trends that we follow at Pax8 relevant to what our partners need to know about, security is something they need to know about because their clients are spending money on this. Canalys came out with a study that showed the overall IT total addressable market in terms of spend, $5.4 trillion. And when they broke that down and you looked at managed services, that was growing at a 13% growth rate. Security was growing higher than that at 15%. So one, when you think about how the economy is growing, you have to pay attention to that. And practically speaking, almost every event that we go to, whether it's ours or an industry channel event, we're talking about the opportunity that security represents for our channel community. And specifically, identity first really resonates. And it's resonating for a few reasons that we see. It's not, and it's not, historically you might have been focused on products like firewall, AV. Those days are gone because there's a couple of factors that are driving why you need to be identity first. And Karim can certainly lean into the detail here because this is where he lives. But when you look at remote work complicating things, when you look at SaaS application sprawl, the number of applications coming into a partner's customer environment, and then you add and overlay AI-related threats, this whole landscape requires something different. And that difference really needs to be identity-first security, where you're talking about identity, access, and quite frankly, resilience, because your perimeter just changed. And so, Karim, I'm sure you're chomping at the bit to comment on that, because, we were just talking about this, and it's something that's real, and it's right in front of you.
That's right. Yeah, I think that's right. The perimeter's not only changed, it's gone.
Yeah.
right? So basically, we now live in a world, because of remote first and everything else Ryan talked about, that basically you have the user accessing an app. And that app is increasingly a cloud-based app and an AI-enabled cloud-based app. So you have this completely new paradigm that both partners and MSPs have to deal with, but also the customer has to deal with, which is how am I going to maintain productivity when my employees are in the office, whether they're at home, whether they're on a mobile device, and how am I going to get that visibility and understand? And it all starts with the core of understanding who they are, what their identity is, and should I grant them access to that application? So it's a very, very different world now. And of course, throughout all that, you got to keep it pretty simple to enable the users to be productive.
I want to add one thing to this that stands out for me to LastPass, because we're talking about a trend, and a trend that LastPass is focused on. And one of those trends that Pax8 sees is complexity, right? So whether it's the SaaS sprawl or whether it's the complexity of the security posture, this really needs to be tamed for our partners, because those partners are serving in large measure small and medium-sized businesses, right? So you got to have a way to deal with the complexity, which means that applies not only to the customer, but it also applies to the MSP. Because as you add on more to your technology stack, that complexity has a tendency to go up. So you need a way to deal with that complexity with an enterprise-grade solution without enterprise-grade cost. And I think that's something that is trending, and when we're talking to our partners, it's like they've got to balance profitability at the end of the day, and it's coming up more and more than we have ever seen.
Yep. That's right. Yeah, most partners we talk to make it really simple for me to turn it on, keep it generally simple for the user, and make it efficient.
And that's in our DNA, because when we started working with partners, it was like, make it easy to do business with us, right? Make it convenient, so then we can all do our day jobs. So, very relevant.
Yeah, it's tough to find that balance of security and usability, and where kind of you line in that scale, right?
Right.
What's approachable.
Yep.
All right, this next question is for Walsh. How does this kind of collaboration reflect your broader strategy when it comes to working with market leaders to create a positive, future-looking experience for managed service providers?
Yeah, this one's also personal for me, because since the basement days, I focused on, originally when we got out of the basement, focusing on finding the right vendor partnerships that really go well with our vision for a marketplace platform. And what that means now more than ever, it's not a product conversation, right? When we started, it was like, what's the next product that you have on your marketplace, because that somewhat defines you. That doesn't work anymore. You have to talk about things like you're focusing on something that's bigger than that. It's not what's the next product. It's like, how does this fit within your solution stack? And it's not just a stack of products. It's a stack that delivers an outcome. And the other part of the fit is alignment with our vision. And that vision runs through having a great experience when you work with Pax8. And so for vendors that are focused on that as well, that creates an alignment that we look for at Pax8, and now it's essential, because there's a lot of options these days, and I get asked this question all the time, like, hey, what's your criteria for finding a product that goes on your marketplace? And we would have classic things in the early part of that journey is product's got to be high quality, because a partner is going to put their reputation on it. It's got to be competitively priced, right? Because they've got to make money. You've got to have integration with us. And if you didn't, focus on APIs and now MCP, you can't get into a marketplace like ours. But the last criteria is the most important, which is commitment to this channel community and the experience that we're trying to take to market. We're curating an ecosystem. And that's very different than saying we're just looking for another product to throw in there. And so that's why the partnership really stood out to me, and in talking with Karim, it's just validating that becomes the most important part of a partnership like this.
All right, this next question is for you. When we see customer environments get even more complex, and it's factors like AI, or we're still working with a hybrid workplace, or shadow IT, how is LastPass really helping managed service providers deliver that sort of seamless, secure access?
Yeah. It's actually a great question relative to the complexity and the pace of change that's happening in environments. I mean, if you look at most businesses, regardless of the size of the business, they're all going through the same kind of manifestation of what's happening, right? You've got a bunch of users that are now hybrid. You've got those users oftentimes using applications that are not within the normal company framework. What does that mean? It means that every company that most of the MSPs work with has a core set of what we'll call company applications. They're the SharePoints of the world, the IDPs and Entras of the world, the Outlooks of the world, they're productivity applications. But many people are bringing applications into work, much like they used to bring devices. They're swiping a credit card. Sometimes it's a corporate credit card. Sometimes it's their own personal credit card. And they're always putting pressure on the organization because there's either a new app that the organization hasn't brought on board or a new AI-enabled app that they want to interact with. Why? Because it's going to make them more productive. That puts a tremendous amount of pressure for two reasons. Back to the first topic of identity, you have to understand who should have access to that application. But before you do that, you have to actually have visibility and then define policies around it. So we kind of recognize, because our heritage was in the password management space. So how do I make sure that organizations can use a password manager to use non-sanctioned applications? But what we've discovered is that the real value to both partners and businesses is actually providing a commensurate level of visibility. And what that means is the ability for the first time to open up a browser and then use the telemetry from the extension in the browser to very quickly tell you all the applications that are SaaS-based and AI-based that your entire population of users are using. And doing that really simply and easily across the board. And that view of the entirety of the applications then allows a whole number of things that a partner can deliver as value to the business. Things like, let me show you a monthly report of all the new applications people are using. Let me help layer in some policies of applications that you don't want people to use, and how can I easily block them simply by enabling that block capability within the browser with the LastPass extension. So it's branching out beyond identity and then starting to weave into visibility of the application and then policy of who can and can't access those apps.
I just want to, if you don't mind, I love hearing that, especially in light of the comment about the perimeter being gone, right? So visibility is going to be everything. But the other call out for me that is really important, I think that partners need to take advantage of, is the demonstration of value. So to have a report to show that, like security historically is either just working behind the scenes, or in some cases, you're going to get blocked. Yeah. But this is more than that. And I think this speaks to something that we're talking to partners about they need to do more of, which is have that consulting conversation, right? Because this is about, you have to respond to the security risk posture in response to the productivity that your employees may be seeking, but it comes at a cost, and they can't afford that. And so now you're having a consultative advisory type conversation with the report that you're mentioning. It's a great demonstration of value.
Yep.
So it's gone beyond just a password manager, basically allowing access in or out of, let's say, a vault.
Yep.
And it's going to the next step of showing us really what's being taken in and out of that vault the whole time.
Correct. Yeah, in and out of the vault, and more importantly, what actual applications people are actually accessing. So what we initially did is we built an extension that people install in the browser. Many people, we have millions of users globally, both consumers and businesses that use it. But it turns out that extension is a really prime real estate. You can actually see all Webflow. So now we've extended the capability to now be able to very simply be able to show you which applications people are using, and we can tie that to which authentication mode. And so what becomes really interesting is the ability to say, people are using competing applications. I have an application that's sanctioned for Monday.com for program management, but somebody swiped a credit card for Reich, which is not an application I typically use or have within my budget framework. So how do I reconcile that? And being able to do that also quickly and simply without making it obtrusive to the user, without actually having to deploy software, because the extensions are automatically update. So there's no agents to deploy, there's no additional software to deploy. You simply enable the policy as an MSP partner on the back end, and that data flows into your tenant, into your console, and then you can do a number of things with that data, including generating those reports of value for the customer themselves.
You know, Karim, you mentioned before that you tamed complexity. Could you speak to that? Because this sounds like almost too good to be true. Like, does a channel partner have to get in there and really spend a lot of time configuring to get the benefit that you're talking about? Or what does that look like?
Yeah, so look, most of our, we have multiple routes to market, obviously, but many of our customers are small to medium-sized businesses. So we had to tame complexity out of necessity for how they operate, right? And that is true also for the partner community through MSPs, which is a big go-to-market route for us. And if you kind of step back and you look at the technologies that have been available for these types of capabilities in the past, you would typically have to put together and integrate technologies like a CASB, so a Netscope, perhaps something you hairpin the traffic in the cloud like a Zscaler, and then you'd have to integrate it into Okta, pull the data out of both of those into something like a Splunk. And so what does that mean? It's complex. It's also costly for the partner to integrate all those things. It's also costly on a per unit perspective to have these technologies, which are very prevalent in enterprises, but as you go down market, become much more expensive and difficult to manage. And obviously you're not going to have all these people that are certified across the product. So what we said is, one of the design principles was, how do I leverage the footprint of the extensions? So first of all, so I do not have to deploy any additional software. Because when you go to a partner, what do they tell you? Part of making it easy means I don't have to touch the endpoint of the client, right? And so how do I do it in such a way that that software just gives you that capability automatically without me having to deploy new software or upgrades? And then secondly, how do I enable it and turn it on without a huge effort? So for us, literally it's a 60-second policy that you enable, and then the data starts to flow from the extension back into the platform in the cloud, and then you can begin to either set policy or generate reporting off of that without any additional work for the partner.
Well, that sounds great. 60 seconds. That's something that I think will give a lot of time back in somebody's
That's the goal.
Can you provide us some priorities that LastPass is doing to invest in the community, whether that's tools or insight, however they're doing to enable the partner community?
Yeah, that's also a great question. So a lot of the work that we're doing is really around enabling the partner community to actually get access to data very quickly and easily. Because in many ways, what we do, data is kind of the lifeblood for the partner and the customer, because that's where the real value is. So what does that actually mean practically, and how does that kind of shape the investments that we're making in our technology? First, we're using those investments to very quickly and easily get the data that we can drive the insights out of our platform into the hands of the partner, right? And that allows them to do a couple of things. It allows them to assess what type of value they want to prescribe to the customer, right? So it could be, as we said earlier, visibility into the applications. If they want to go one step further, it could be generating policies to warn users that they're about to use an application that is not sanctioned. If they want to go one step further, it's actually putting a security policy in place through the extension that completely blocks access to that application. But all of it starts with easy access to the data, and then we let the partner decide how they want to use that data and where they and the company is in their maturity cycle. And that's important because what we've realized working with a lot of partners is they'll have a lot of different downstream customers, and they'll want to take the customer on that journey of where they are in their security maturity model. Some partners and some customers aren't quite ready to implement certain capabilities, but they'll want to get there in the fullness of time. And so a lot of that investment is around kind of defining that journey and enabling it with data.
I love that, Karim, because another trend that we're tracking is that one size doesn't fit all.
Yeah.
So to configure your product, they'll allow a partner to find what policy makes sense with their client is becoming more important that they do that rather than it's just predetermined. This is the policy you're going to go to market with. That doesn't really reflect, I think, what partners are telling us is that they are adding value based on knowledge of their clients.
Right.
And so let them make decisions based on the options that you're giving them. That makes a lot of sense.
Correct. And it's a really interesting discussion because when we meet with partners, one of the biggest things, completely understandably, what they'll say is, give me things that are repeatable. And so in some ways, it sounds like what we're saying is, oh no, don't make things repeatable, make them customizable, but we're not. What we've realized is that give them the flexibility because the partner really is the one that understands the customer. Right? They're the ones that have the relationship. Give them a model so that you can make them understand where the customer is, how to meet and talk to the customer, and allow them to make that journey with the customer over time. Because for the partner, we see that means they add value to the customer and that they can continue to layer in more and more capabilities to drive more revenue in the fullness of time through their lens and drive more value to the customer through the customer lens.
Great call out.
Thank you, Karim and Ryan, for coming together and having this conversation. I'd like to give each of you really an opportunity to have a last word.
This is great, KG and Karim. This is fun to do this with you. And I get excited about it because when we think about how do we leverage this partnership, you have a product like yours that comes into this marketplace. And I get excited because partners can go to market with confidence that this is a tool that they can not only satisfy a need for their clients, but they can also utilize it to grow their revenue.
Right.
And so it's great to have something that checks a few boxes in terms of drivers that matter to our partners, and LastPass definitely does that. I'm excited for this and where it goes.
Yeah, we're excited by the partnership by virtue of the fact that, as we were talking about earlier, we've got kind of like a similar ethos, right?
Yeah.
Keep it simple, build it for scale, make it efficient for people to make money and for the downstream customers to see real value. So it's a
good fit.
It's a good fit. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
To the partner community, I'd encourage you to reach out to your Pax8 account manager or check out pax8.com for more information on LastPass. Thank you.